Welcome to week 3 of Blessed and Broken. Early in the Gospel of John, we come across the account of Jesus cleansing the temple. This is one of the few events that is recorded in all 4 Gospels. The fact that it occurs in every Gospel indicates its importance to the Gospel writers. Instead of treating the temple with respect and reverence as God's house, people were flagrantly using the temple as a marketplace for buying and selling, for making money. Space that should have been reserved to God for worship and prayer had been distorted into a den of profit-driven greed. Jesus' actions in tossing them all out in righteous anger are a stark reminder to us of the fact that God should be placed at the centre of our lives. When we come to worship together as the body of Christ, are our thoughts and actions properly centred on God? Or are we allowing the cares, responsibilities, and desires of this world to encroach into what should clearly be set aside for God? Jesus' actions are a clear challenge to human priorities. Those who were buying and selling in the temple were presumably doing so to make a living, to get by in a hard world, to support their families. And the temple was perfectly situated for that purpose, right at the centre of Jewish life. Human pragmatism latches on to that space as having the potential to earn us a good financial return, and once our livelihoods are secure, then surely we intend to worship God. How many of us are guilty of this, of failing to place God in God's rightful spot, of pushing God onto the back burner while we struggle to pay the mortgage and the bills, to earn enough for a holiday, and to buy our families what they need. For young people especially, it is important not to let the worries of setting up our own lives and livelihoods get in the way of our faith, which happens all too frequently. Pope Francis addresses this cycle of consumerism in The Joy of the Gospel. He says, "Today's economic mechanisms promote inordinate consumption, yet it is evident that unbridled consumerism combined with inequality proves doubly damaging to the individual and the social fabric. The church pews are almost empty of those in their 20s and 30s, those who are establishing themselves in the world. Some of us may come back later in life, bringing our children, keen to re-establish that connection with God now that we have sorted out the important stuff, the necessities. This dramatic story challenges us and questions us about what is truly central to our lives. As Christians, is the centre of our daily lives following the way of Jesus? Or are we narrowly focused on our attempts to get by in this world? And in fact, by trying to look after ourselves and placing our physical needs ahead of our need for God, are we dooming ourselves? We need to place our priorities in the right order, with God at the centre. Everything else is peripheral. Yet, as humans, we tend to latch onto material rather than spiritual goods. The temple was being treated as simply a place, a building. Jesus makes the point that the real temple is his body, which will be broken and then glorified by God in resurrection to new life. It is clear that those listening at the time did not realize the full import of Jesus' words. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Even the disciples did not realize what he meant until they remembered his words after the cross and resurrection. What is most important for human life is not buildings or financial security, but faith in God. The text of the Gospel of John was probably written well after the Gospel of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, and after Titus and his 3 Roman legions had flattened the temple and most of Jerusalem in 70 AD. The Jewish people and the early Christian community had been scattered across the Roman Empire. In comparison to the other Gospels, the author of the Gospel of John places this story right at the beginning of the mission of Jesus. The author wants the reader to remember that even though the temple may be reduced to rubble, there is a new temple that is always accessible and available, the temple of the human heart, where the Spirit will abide and be in you. In the Gospel of John, faith, communion, and dependency on God are key themes in the teachings of Jesus, themes we need to remember as being most important for human flourishing.